Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back to Unravel Uplift. We're here again today with hopefully another fun topic to pull apart and then leave you with some really good resources and ideas of how to move forward. Okay. So have you ever driven home replaying a conversation over and over again in your mind?
Always. Yeah.
Like thinking, why did I say that?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't I speak up? Why did I apologize? Why am I still thinking about this 3 hours later, over and over and over again?
Yes. Or maybe you've spent like the last 20 minutes writing a 2-sentence text, deleted it, rewrote it, added some smiley faces, some emojis to help create some content and depth, asked someone else to read it, and then still wondered why it sounded rude, right?
Or thrown it through ChatGPT.
Right. Yeah, that too. Like I will write things like, make this nicer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not a good sign.
Or maybe someone bumped into you and somehow you're the one that said, I'm sorry. Why do we do that?
Mm-hmm. So today's episode isn't really about communication. It's about confidence, it's about boundaries, it's about relationships, and it's about finally believing your voice that deserves to take up space.
I think the truth is, conversations we have shape our lives and the way we live, and the words we choose create the world around us.
Yeah, definitely. So today we're going to talk about something that has completely changed the way that we think about communication. Not because we've become different people, but because we've learned to choose those different words.
Welcome to Unravel and Uplift, where we unravel life's messiest moments and uplift each other with practical tools, meaningful conversations, and reminders that growth doesn't have to be perfect. I'm Claire.
And I'm Jen. Let's unravel this together.
So today we're going to talk about how no one ever taught us to communicate.
Right. Yeah. Think about it. Like in school, we learned math, we learned science, we learned history, but almost no one ever taught us how to communicate properly.
Especially as women. Instead, we learn things like be nice, don't interrupt, don't make people feel uncomfortable, smile, don't be too bossy, don't ask for too much, keep the peace, definitely don't hurt anyone's feelings. And somewhere along the way, many of us can confuse being kind with staying quiet and almost being taken for granted sometimes as well, being that doormat.
Yeah, that's a lot of messaging. And to your point, as women, like we are constantly reinforced with those behaviors.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And almost rewarded
Mm-hmm.
for being that good woman.
Right. Being a good girl.
Woman. Yeah. And what if we've spent all of our lives trying to be agreeable when all we really wanted to be is understood?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very different goal, right?
Very different goal. So the inspiration for this podcast came from another podcast host that I adore. His name is Jefferson Fisher. We've maybe alluded to him in one of the past podcasts. So he is a trial attorney by profession, and he has become one of the most trusted voices in the community and has best-selling books, his podcast, he has videos. They've maybe have popped up in your socials, and he's helped millions of people navigate difficult conversations with more confidence and clarity. Just do yourself a favor. They're short. They're like anywhere from 20 to maybe 35 minutes. And he breaks down a conversation that's challenging. And he is from Austin, Texas. He has a nice Southern tone to his voice, and it's so calming. And when I listen to it, it really helps put in perspective in really simple terms on how to communicate. So we wanted to bring that forward today. We'll share his link in our podcast and invite you to listen to him because I think it could really be beneficial. But what really resonated with us is he doesn't teach people how to win arguments, being a lawyer, but he teaches people how to communicate in a way that builds respect, connection, and confidence. And then we thought, why weren't we ever taught this?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that just the communication is different,
Mm-hmm.
and done in a way that is more thoughtful.
Yes. And you can lead with confidence and clarity because that's the challenge. That's what goes back to those uncomfortable moments, how we started this conversation of why did I not say that?
Yeah.
Or why did I say that? Did you ever watch the movie Dirty Dancing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's this scene where Jennifer Grey comes into this party. She's asked to help carry a watermelon. And then she goes into this room, and we've all had this moment.
Yeah.
And I think about this all the time. And you walk into the room and someone comes up to you and they're like, hey, what is she doing here? And she doesn't know what to say. So she's like, oh, I carried the watermelon. And you see her face, she's like, why in the hell did I say that? I carried the watermelon.
Yeah.
That's all you could think to say. That's what you said. We all have those I carried that watermelon moment. So we're going to unravel that today.
Especially when you just feel awkward or uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's a go-to.
Yep.
So as Jen alluded to, today's conversation is inspired by many of Jefferson's ideas, but we're also weaving in insights from leadership, psychology, emotional intelligence, and our own experiences navigating careers, marriage, parenting, friendships, and all the beautifully messy conversations life throws at us.
Yeah. Because this is what we realized. Every day, we're having 4 conversations that shape our lives. So we're going to break them down one by one.
So conversation number 1, the conversation with yourself.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That voice in your head.
And the most important one, really, the conversation we have with ourselves, right? So before we start talking about communication with other people, let's start with the person that you talk to more than anyone else, yourself. So we'll do a quick exercise together.
Okay, so wherever you are right now, in the car, on a walk, folding laundry, we want you to think back over the last 24 hours. Did you say any of these things to yourself inside your head? I'm so stupid. I always mess this up. I'm terrible with money. I'm such a bad mum. I look awful today. Why can't I ever get it together? Everyone else has this figured out except for me. Now, here's the question. Would you ever say those words to your best friend?
No, of course not. Of course you wouldn't. You'd probably wrap your arms around them. You would remind them that everything that he or she is doing right. You'd tell them that they are human. You would encourage them and tell them why it's okay that it's not okay that these people are to say these words to yourself and you never say them to anybody else.
So this week, we want you to try to catch it, challenge it, and change it. So you're going to play detective with your own thoughts. This is not going to be easy. I'm going to be honest. I reckon we have thousands of these sentences, words, thoughts just going through our heads every single day. But what we are challenging you to do, and we're going to do it ourselves as well, is notice yourself saying something unkind in your head. Pause. Don't judge it. Just notice it. That awareness is the first step.
Yeah. So step 1 is to catch it. If you say, I always fail, I'll probably embarrass myself. I'm too old. I'm not enough. Just simply notice that thought.
And then we're going to ask you to challenge it. So we're going to get you to ask yourself, is this actually true? Or is this just a story I've repeated so many times that I've started to believe it?
So then we're going to say, step 3 is change it. Don't jump into unrealistic positivity. Instead, replace it with something that's honest and compassionate. Instead of saying, I'm terrible at this, try, I'm still learning. Instead of saying, I always mess everything up, try, I've made mistakes before, but I've also figured things out. Instead of, I'm a bad mom, try, I'm a mom who's doing her best today. Instead of, I can't do this, try, I haven't done this yet. And then notice that we didn't ask you to lie to yourself. We're not saying everything is perfect. We're saying speak to yourself in a way that you would speak to someone you deeply love.
We're also going to ask you to do the mirror test. It's another simple exercise. Tomorrow morning, look yourself in the mirror. Yes, we are asking you to do that, as uncomfortable as it may be, because I can tell you, I do not like looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
But we're asking you to do this. Look yourself in the mirror, not to judge, not to criticize, not to find wrinkles or flaws or say, I've got that extra pound or any of that stuff. Just look and then ask yourself one question. If the person in the mirror were my daughter, my sister, or my best friend, what would I say to her today? Now, say those words to yourself. It might feel awkward. It might feel uncomfortable. That's okay. That's the point. Confidence doesn't begin with you when you believe every positive thing you say. It begins the moment you stop believing every negative thing you think.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're changing that idea that negative thought can actually turn into something more positive.
And I think that mirror talk is so positive because you would never, we are so mean and critical of ourselves. We often don't give ourselves a break.
No.
And you would never, ever say that to your best friend or your sister or anybody in your life. You would never break them down that way. So why do we do that to ourselves? So please, as ridiculous as this sounds, that is a healthy habit for you to catch that negative self-talk that you probably didn't even know was going on in there.
This is one of the things I love in my coaching sessions. One of the questions I really like to ask if I'm hearing the negative talk, because, coaching is that opportunity for people to really say those thoughts out loud in that safe space. I'm there to observe. I'm there to reflect back. And I can sometimes hear a repetition, or even contradictions. And someone might be stuck. And one of the questions I really like to ask, and I'd really advocate that you ask this if you're having these repeated thoughts in your mind, is what would I say to a friend if they came to me about this?
Yeah.
Because sometimes by putting that different head on, that different mind, your answer is going to be the answer that's going to turn it to be more positive, more helpful, to get you unstuck.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so moving on to conversation number 2, it's the conversations you have with people that you love. So we know relationships can fall apart. Well, they don't fall apart with one explosive argument, right? More often, it's that slow drift. It's because of all the conversations that you never have, the appreciation you never expressed, the hurt that you never admitted, the boundaries that were never set, the needs we assumed someone would just know, right? We're very guilty. Like, you should just know. But people can't respond to conversations that you only have inside your head.
Emotions make things tricky, right? And we're human beings with lots of emotions, big emotions. So think about that for a second. How many times have you expected your spouse to know what you needed, or assumed your teenager knew they hurt your feelings, or wished a friend would check in without ever telling them you were struggling? Silence creates stories. Conversations creates understanding. It is like those fabrications in our mind, that we tell ourselves almost the worst case situation, scenario, story, when we actually don't know.
Right. Yeah, we don't know.
Because we've not
the
put it out
people
there.
across from us don't know, but you think they should know. And then, gosh, I mean, that resentment and that anger can just build, which is not going to serve you well. So we're going to start with number 1, the conversation shift, right? So replace assumptions with curiosity. So instead of saying, you never listen to me, try, help me understand what you're thinking. Curiosity opens the door. Accusations, they typically close one.
So a real life example of this is, instead of "you don't care about helping around the house," try, "I've been feeling overwhelmed lately. Can we figure out a better way to divide things?" It's the same issue, but a very different conversation.
Yeah.
And I know a few years ago, I went through this, and that person didn't know.
Yeah.
That person didn't know that I was feeling overwhelmed and drowning. And by bringing it into the world in a non-threatening, non-emotive way, well, the emotion's on me more than the emotion's on them.
They don't know what's coming most of the time.
Yeah. Really helped.
Yeah. So conversation shift number 2 is say what you need. So people can't, as much as we think, actually, I'm glad that they don't. People can't read our minds. Instead of saying, I say this, fine, say, it's okay. Or instead of saying fine or it's okay, try saying, I'm actually hurt. I'm feeling hurt, or what I need right now is. So that clear communication is kindness. And there's times where if I am feeling spicy and something's building, in my mind, I know what I should say and how I should say it. But there's this moment where, like, I don't need to sugarcoat this shit. I'm just going to come right at it. But as soon as I do that, it usually is not received well. And I should have pulled that back and said, okay, how can I frame this so it doesn't seem like an attack to the person I'm trying to talk to? And that first statement sets the stage for a productive conversation, because otherwise coming in hot is really not going to serve you well.
But it's hard.
Yeah.
It is hard to it's hard to verbalize some of these thoughts.
Especially when they're building.
And actually to feel like it's okay to say them.
Yeah.
Especially when we've had the messaging of just be kind. I mean, the biggest thing when I was growing up is if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. Well, people, there are things that I have to say that are not nice.
Yeah.
But I've had that mantra just repeated to me, like, don't say it if it's not nice.
Yeah.
So it just sits there
Yeah.
and it goes through my head. And I like to think I'm a nice person, but I have those thoughts. I have wicked thoughts.
So how do you frame it? Yeah. How do you frame it? Yeah. How do you be less wicked?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard when you're told, don't say it. Don't vocalize if it's not nice. Well, what if someone's upset you?
Right.
And they've not been nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a great transition because number 3 is address it before it becomes resentment. I can be queen of resentment. So it grows in silence, as we know. The earlier you have the conversation, the smaller it usually is, right? So you have to ask yourself, which one is harder? Having the 5-minute uncomfortable conversation today or carrying the weight for 5 months?
I can guarantee the 5 months is more exhausting.
Yeah.
So in reflection here, is there someone you've been hoping would magically know how you feel? Because maybe today's the day to lovingly tell them in a really nice way, because protecting that relationship isn't about avoiding hard conversations. Sometimes it's actually having those hard conversations.
Yeah.
But I think it's the way it is delivered.
Oh, for sure. And remember that the goal isn't always, this is hard for me because sometimes I just want to win. But it's not about winning the conversation. The goal is to leave the relationship stronger than you've started it, right?
Unspoken expectations become premeditated resentments.
That's a powerful statement. Yeah.
So pause and explain. So often we resent people for not meeting expectations we've never communicated. Like, how are they to know? But then we hold on to this and we carry that resentment, even though we've not actually said it. They've got to be a mind reader.
Yeah.
We assume that they should just know, but they can't respond to that conversation if it's only happened in our head. So it's almost really unfair of us to then be like, okay, you should be able to sense this. You should know.
Yes. And it's funny that we can sit here and giggle about it because we know it's true. And I'm sure you listeners out there
guilty of it.
Can 100% relate to this as women, because I think as women, we are very attuned. We can tell when something's off in our home. We can tell something's off with our friendships. And I always don't think that, not to discredit other people in our lives, but they don't have that same radar that we do. And so when we expect them to know how we're feeling, that's not a fair assumption.
Well, and I also think lots of people have very different emotional intelligence levels.
Yes.
And they're emotionally intelligent at different things as well.
Yep.
So we may be good at reading someone, but it doesn't mean that someone else is good at reading us.
Right.
And I think that's just something that, is kind of tricky when if you've got a strength. I mean, I see this all the time in the workplace. If you have a strength and someone else doesn't, you almost expect them to also have that strength.
Yeah.
And you sometimes have to sit back and realize, okay, they don't have that strength, but they have another strength. And actually, if we work together with my strength and their strength, this could be amazing.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So that's a great transition, Claire, because now we're moving to conversation number 3 is the conversation at work. So whether you're leading a company, you're managing a team, you're running your own business, or simply just trying to get people into a meeting, the way you communicate shapes how people experience your confidence, right? And there's something that I've heard over the years that really holds true to this. Confidence isn't about having the loudest voice in the room.
Although some people think that.
Right. It's about having a clear one. So too often, especially women, we unintentionally soften our message before we've made our point.
So have you ever caught yourself saying, I just wanted to. I may be wrong. This might be a silly idea. Gosh, I use that one a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Without realizing it, we've minimized our own ideas before anyone else has had the chance to hear them.
Yeah. Okay, so example number 1 is workplace shift number 1, to say it with confidence. So small words make a big difference. Instead of, I just wanted to check in, say, I'm checking in on. Instead of, I think maybe, say, my recommendation is. Instead of, this might be a silly idea, say, here's another perspective to consider. Your ideas deserve to be introduced with confidence.
Such small shifts in that, but
Mhm.
I can see how powerful they could be.
Yeah.
I'm going to, this week, I'm going to do that. Here's another perspective to consider. It adds some conviction.
Yeah.
It does, it's not minimizing your thought.
Right. It's just slightly tweaking in a way that becomes a lot more powerful. Yeah.
So our workplace shift number 2 is be brief, then stop talking. One of the biggest habits many of us have is over-explaining. For sure. I go through this one all the time. We keep talking because we're trying to convince people. But confidence often sounds like this. Here's my recommendation. Pause. That's it. Give your words room to land. Silence isn't awkward. That's one thing I've learned through my coaching.
Yeah.
Is silence is so important.
Yes. They need that time to digest it and think of it. And when we've had our coaching sessions, you do such a good job of saying, because I'll just rattle on, I'll get talking too fast. And I always call it the verbal vomit. I'm just flowing, right? And then Claire will sit there and I'm like, are you getting this? And then she's digesting it. I can tell she's digesting it. And then she says this phrase that's so powerful to me every single time. She says, what I'm hearing you saying is, and then she takes all of that, all those words and all those feelings I just shared and bringing it back to me in a way that I'm like, oh, I did just say that. Because sometimes I don't even know what I'm saying, right? And I think that is so powerful, that pause that you take to let me think about what's happening, you to digest what's happening, and then come back with a thought or a direction that is thought out, and you don't have to always fill the space. And that's another awkward thing in conversations. You feel like you have to keep talking because you're uncomfortable, and just the more movement of that conversation feels better, but the pause can be so powerful. And that's something Jefferson Fisher does really well in his podcast. He's a party of one in this podcast, but he'll pause and it just allows that to sink in, and then you can reflect on the situation that you're in, and it really helps, I think, that to sink in and set. So,
well, and I think we're taught pause is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Silence is uncomfortable. And it really isn't.
Yeah.
Silence and pause are just natural.
Yeah.
But it's hard to break those messages that we've heard all our lives.
Yeah.
Workplace number 3, ask instead of defend. Not every disagreement requires a defense. You are not necessarily a defense attorney all the time. Sometimes the strongest response is curiosity. Instead of immediately explaining yourself, ask, tell me more about your concern, or help me understand your perspective. Those open questions create collaboration. Defensiveness already puts that wall up and creates that opposition. And people do naturally then mirror and become defensive back.
Yeah, definitely.
Curiosity is just a wonderful thing. They say curiosity killed the cat.
Right.
I'm not so sure.
Not so sure. Yeah.
I'm not so sure of that.
Okay. Number 4 is negotiate with value, not an apology. So again, I think this is really resonates with women. Whether you're asking for a raise, presenting an idea, negotiating with a customer, or leading with the value that you bring, not with why you feel guilty for asking. So again, we shouldn't feel guilty for asking as women. Replace it like, I know budgets are tight, with here's the value that this creates. People invest in value, not apologies. So you're already setting the tone for a weak, I don't want to say defense, but the person across from you already understands that that for you, this is difficult to ask for. So it's just easier for them to shut it down.
We have a friend who's really good, really, really good at being able to say what she wants in a really effective manner without it causing any upset.
Yeah.
She is
trickery, really.
She is marvelous at it. I like
good.
Literally I'm mesmerized by it, but she is so good. And she doesn't ever make you feel like what she is asking for is bad.
Yeah, or unreasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it is just changing those words around.
Yeah, definitely.
Workplace shift number 5, listen to understand. The best leaders aren't always the best speakers. They're often the best listeners. People remember how you made them feel. When people feel heard, they're far more likely to hear. Active listening is such a key thing in communication.
Yes.
And I mean by that, not just what someone is saying, but what is not being said. What was that behavior shift that you saw in someone? What are their behavioral mannerisms?
Right.
You know, like if someone is sat crossed-legged, crossed arms with a very stern look on their face, you know that they're not going to be open to something, you know? So it's be aware of that, read that, and then approach that communication and that conversation in a way that you can even say, I'm noticing that maybe this isn't comfortable for you.
Right.
What can we do to make this more comfortable?
Right.
You know, or something around those
to break
lines,
down that
to
barrier.
break down that barrier.
Right.
Yeah. Just noticing those subtle shifts in people, I think, are key.
Yeah.
And it's like not just hearing the words that are being said, it's almost like what is not being said.
Right.
You know?
And any leadership book that I have read or podcast that I listen to, you know, they always talk about the best leaders and the best executives or what have you. They listen more than they talk, and they deeply listen. They're hearing for words and tones, and they're using those pauses to really think about how to ask the right questions back or to pull the right information out of them. And I can be guilty of going into a conversation, knowing how I think I want that to flow. And then while sometimes that person's talking, I'm already thinking about what I want to say next, but then I'm not really listening to what they're saying. And then that's really not a productive conversation. So when my mind starts getting too active, or if I've had too much matcha, something like this is going too strong, I have to pull myself back and say, Jen, yes, you'll get your chance to talk. Don't overspeak. Let them finish and do them that courtesy. And then you can respond with a way that you should respond if you truly listen to them. So I think that's
I think
important.
Being curious is very key in this, like, because I think you're right. We can go in with our judgment of how we want a conversation to go, what we think success looks like. The other person isn't privy to that. They don't know. And so it's almost like you have to remove that bias, remove that judgment, be curious. Because actually, that person, if you ask the right question, may give you something that is key to moving whatever it is forward. You know, so it's hard though. It's hard to be in that moment, especially when those emotions are there, or there's something that you want as a win, but there may be a legitimate reason behind why it cannot go the way that you want it to. You know, and to be curious, I think
it's not about winning. So when you go into your next meeting, you know, think about that one phrase that you're trying to say. And what's one confident phrase that you're going to start using instead, right? So sometimes the smallest change in that language creates the biggest change in how you want people to see you.
And I think really it's important to remember that the goal isn't to sound perfect. It's to sound like someone who believes in what they're saying. Because if you don't believe in your own words, it's hard to expect anyone else to.
Yeah, that's a powerful statement. Yeah. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I've ever received is don't diminish your message before you've delivered it. Right? So all that self-doubt or the way that you phrase it, like, I just want to say, or this might be silly, you've already discounted your powerful statement. So really think about how you'd want that positioned, and listen to people who you believe in or you feel are your mentors or good at speaking, and try to take some of that language into your own and listen to that.
So conversation 4, this is the hard conversation. And these are hard. They're difficult. They're tricky, complex.
Yeah. So we've all had that conversation that we've been avoiding, right? I'm sure as listeners, you're thinking of several right now. And setting a boundary, it could be saying no, giving difficult feedback, receiving criticism. That's a hard one.
It is.
Telling someone that they hurt us. These are conversations that often change relationships, not because they're easy, but because they're honest. The good news about that is you don't always have to be fearless to have this hard conversation. You just need to be prepared. So we're going to give you a simple framework that's helped us get ready to have difficult conversations in our lives.
So step one, this is always a golden oldie. We keep going back to this. Name your goal.
Mm-hmm.
Before you think about what you're going to say, ask yourself, what is my goal for this conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Really think about, what am I looking to achieve here?
Yeah.
Not how do I prove I'm right? Not how do I win? Instead, ask, what relationship do I want to have when this conversation is over? Like, really start looking forward, as opposed to being in that kind of stagnant emotional state. Maybe your goal is understanding. Maybe it's clarity. Maybe it's setting a healthy boundary. Maybe it's problem solving together. When you define your goal first, your emotions are less likely to define the conversation for you. The goal becomes your compass whenever emotions start pulling you off course.
Yeah. Yeah. So before you even speak, and Claire started to touch on this, like, your body has already set the tone for that conversation, right? So think about what happens when you're nervous. Everybody's unique in this. Are your shoulders tight? A lot of people clench their jaws. They stop breathing. Like that's powerful, right? The shoulders tense up. They'll grimace. If you want your delivery to be received well and you want to communicate well, you need to relax. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. Just breathe into it.
Yeah.
Even when I go into a coaching session, I have to make sure as a coach, my mind is clear.
Yep.
So I could have had an argument with someone beforehand,
baggage that you're carrying into this.
And I need to make sure that I have packaged that away, even if I don't have time to deal with it right there and then, packaged it away so that I can go into my coaching session without carrying on to that. Because then how I am in that coaching session as the coach turning up can really impact the session.
Right.
I have to be really aware of my nonverbal cues.
That's tough.
Because, a day doesn't go easy all the time, There's lots of difficult conversations, and then we carry stuff from that.
Yeah.
So it's hard to do that. But just those breathing exercises, that kind of trying to free your mind and just be like, okay, it is what it is. I'm aware of it. I acknowledge it, and I will deal with this. But right now, I'm going to be present.
Yeah.
I'm
and that's
present
a really tough, non-selfish thing to do, because if you have a trigger or you're bringing in that baggage from another conversation or a tough day at work, it's hard to put that aside for the needs of others sometimes. So,
but being present, I think, is really important in these conversations. Step 3 is focus on your opening line. Here's something that completely changed the way I approach difficult conversations. Don't rehearse the entire conversation. Rehearse the opening sentence. That's the piece where you're going to set the intention, and it's really the only piece that you control, because someone else is involved in this once you open into it. I can't control how that other person responds. I can't predict every question they'll ask, but I can control my first words. So I'd like to use an example here. I'd like to talk about something that's been on my mind. This conversation is important to me because our relationship matters. I'm hoping we can understand each other better. Then stop, listen. The best conversations aren't perfectly rehearsed. They are genuinely shared.
Yeah. So step 4 is lead with vulnerability. One of the quickest ways to lower the temperature in a difficult conversation is to acknowledge that it's difficult, right? So just go right up front and tell them. So you might say, this isn't easy for me to bring up, or I probably will not say this perfectly, but it's important to me. Or I'm nervous to have this conversation because I care about our relationship. I'm not expecting to solve everything today. I just would like to start this conversation. Like, those simple statements can do something really powerful. They remove the pressure on the conversation being perfect. They invite the other person into the conversation instead of putting them on the defense immediately. And it builds that connection. Perfection can, build walls. So go into it openly and give yourself that space to make mistakes and stumble along the way.
Vulnerability is key. I really do. And I think people are scared to be vulnerable. And I get that, but I think it can really help a conversation go in a much more productive way.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, so our takeaway, we've shared a lot of information there, given you some suggestions. But here's what we hope you remember. If you can, remove the fear. It becomes a conversation. If you can remove the need to win, it becomes a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
If you can remove the pressure to be perfect, it becomes an opportunity to understand each other. And that's where real communication begins. Go into the conversation with a purpose, not a performance. That way you can have that genuine curiosity. You can be present. Those powerful questions are going to come to you. It's going to be a two-way conversation
Mm-hmm.
where someone feels like that they're involved,
Right.
that they're part of it.
Yeah. And that's what a conversation is, right? It's a two-way street. It's not if it was a one-way street, it'd be called a lecture.
Yes.
Right. So we unraveled a ton about the approach to having conversations, whether it's your body language, self-talk with your family and friends and loved ones, the hard conversations and how to prepare for them to maybe come out with your hopefully desired results or at least a step in the right direction. But it really wasn't about learning to communicate better. It was about giving yourself permission to stop shrinking, to stop apologizing for existing, and then to stop believing that your kindness has come to at the expense of your clarity.
Just remember that your voice matters and your needs matter. Your boundaries matter. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do is say the hard thing kindly. And I think that's key.
Mm-hmm.
Always be kind.
Yeah.
Always be human.
Yeah.
Think to yourself, if I was hearing this, how would I want it to be said?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like looking in the mirror when you need to have that conversation with someone else, practice it. And how does that come off and how would it be received? Yeah, that's a good point.
Text your friends as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we do that a lot. Yeah.
Use ChatGPT. There's lots of resources there to help you just refine how you go about something.
Yeah, for sure. So this is what we want you to take away from today's conversation and the words that create worlds. The words you speak to yourself create your confidence. The words you speak to people you love create your relationships. The words you choose at work create your opportunities. The words you avoid to create distance. And the brave words you finally decide to say can change your life, one conversation at a time.
And I think I've got an example, Jen, a real life one here as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was Jen's birthday. Okay. We recorded a session that day. I forgot it was Jen's birthday. So I saw Jen, didn't mention it, got nowhere. And then later that day, I was in my calendar and I was like, oh, shoot, it's Jen's birthday.
And I was fine to not bring it up. Totally. You hit a certain
But
age.
I wasn't. She's my friend. I wanted to know that I'm thinking of her on her special day. So I text Jen and I was like, oh my gosh, I am such a shitty friend. Because I legit was. I mean, it was your birthday. I saw you. Like, we rarely see each other on our birthdays.
Right.
I'm hoping Jen took that in the way that I was owning what I did because I'm human and I forgot.
Yeah.
I literally forgot. And then I felt really shitty about it. And then I spammed Jen for about an hour.
Yeah. Like she sent me all these GIFs and messages about birthdays. And I'm like, Claire, enough. Like, give yourself grace. And that's the thing too, right? Like, it's not just owning up a conversation or admitting a short step. The recipient also can give that person grace too. And be like, hey, we are human. It is not a big deal. And that's a way, not that that was by any means a hard conversation to have, but just being honest about where you were on a certain day. And then the recipient also being honest, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, relax.
But I wanted her to feel the love,
Right.
So I didn't want to ignore that. I didn't want to ignore that.
Right.
I was like, oh, crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think we have, and it could be something like that. It could be something bigger.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to just be human.
Yeah.
In all of
this. We are communicating at so many different levels. That's all we do. As humans, we are communicators, right? And so we're constantly trying to influence or sway or discuss, share a point of view. We do that all day. So the way that we do it will hopefully help deliver more positive outcomes to the end result.
Yeah. I think it's important to also think you don't need the loudest voice. You do not need to be the loudest voice in the room. You don't need permission. You don't need the perfect words. You simply need to trust your voice that you already have.
Yeah. Yep. So thank you for spending your day with us today. If this episode encouraged you or changed you or emotionally you thought of someone else that could benefit from this, please share it with them because maybe the next conversation they have changes everything. So until next time, keep unraveling, keep uplifting, and remember,
words create worlds. Choose yours wisely.
Yes. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.